It wasn't a ring, it was a shrine. Padded floors, elevated ropes, and a spotlight hung like a moon above the canvas, suspended in the middle of a luxury training compound that smelled more like cologne and money than sweat and blood. Jason Statham stood near the edge of the mat, shoulders still, hands tucked into his coat pockets. He wasn't dressed to fight, didn't need to be, he wasn't invited here to spar. He was invited to watch, at least that's what they said. Cameras panned lazily from the balcony above, live streaming the event for the champ's sponsors. On the far end of the ring, a ring girl adjusted her headset. A few reporters whispered in amusement, not at the fight but at the uninvited guest leaning on the ropes. Jason didn't flinch. Then came the entrance, thudding bass, LED strobes. The doors opened wide and in walked Axel Creed, the reigning heavyweight champion, 29 wins, 0 losses, and a jaw carved from arrogance. He danced his way down the hallway, gloves on, chin high, showboating to invisible music while his entourage filmed every second, shirt off, gold chain bouncing. He was built like a wrecking ball and grinned like he already won. Jason didn't move. The crowd, small but wired, laughed when Axel stepped between the ropes and shot Jason a glance that barely lasted a second, as if he were background. Then Axel turned to the mic. It wasn't planned, but he liked that. He told the room someone's uncle wandered in from a movie set. He said it was time to teach the old dogs to stay out of the cage. Laughter, phones raised, a few cheers. Jason blinked once. That was it, because he knew something they didn't. He wasn't here for the press. He wasn't here for Axel. He was here because someone from Axel's team, a coach, maybe even a ghost, had called him and warned him. This wasn't a fight, it was a setup. Axel tossed his gloves onto the mat like a man offering a challenge but not expecting it to be answered. He leaned into Jason's space. The cameras leaned with him. Jason looked him in the eye, not with fire, but with stillness. And that unsettled Axel just enough to make him double down. He told the crew they were going to make a clip out of this, said Jason could step in and play veteran, called him washed, called him fake, called him lucky for surviving on camera rather than in the cage. Jason stepped forward, took off his coat, folded it, dropped it outside the ring. No words, just pressure. Axel laughed, a little too loud now, but he stepped back into the ring. The bell didn't ring. There was no ref, just history. Axel bounced on the balls of his feet, quick, fast hands, loud feet. Jason stood still, one hand raised slightly, just enough to mark distance. Axel circled, threw a jab. Jason didn't blink. Another jab. A little closer. Jason's shoulder shifted barely. The punch slipped past him like a whisper. Then Jason stepped forward. No combo. No haymaker. Just one slow, deliberate step. Axel threw again, a full-body hook, and Jason caught it, not with a block, with a grip. He let the punch land on his palm, then twisted, not hard but surgical. Axel's arm bent. His balance broke, and the champ stumbled forward, caught himself, and reset. But now the grin was gone. Jason didn't press. He didn't need to. The crowd didn't cheer. They were watching now. Something shifted in the room. Axel feinted fast. Threw a real combination. Left jab, body shot, step back, uppercut. Jason moved like water, tilted, turned, slipped everything. No wasted motion. No adrenaline, just precision. Then, when Axel overcommitted again, Jason stepped inside and delivered a palm strike, not to the chin, not to the chest, but to the shoulder. It knocked Axel off axis, not down, not out, just exposed. Jason didn't follow up. He just stepped back. Axel looked at him, blinked. Something in his eyes shifted, not fear, not yet, but doubt. The crowd sensed it. Jason Statham hadn't come to box. He'd come to remind someone. Because 20 years ago, Jason wasn't an actor. He was the man behind a name Axel used to idolize. A name that once dominated underground circuits across Europe. A name whispered through bloodied locker rooms and hushed fighter circles. And that name, Jason never used it in public, but Axel had mocked it in an interview just 2 weeks earlier. Called it an urban myth from London's bare-knuckle scene. Jason had seen the clip, and now, Axel was beginning to realize the myth was very real. Outside the ring, Axel's coach leaned forward, eyes wide, because he recognized the look, not in Jason, in Axel, the beginning of regret. And they all knew, the next round wouldn't be silent, it would be surgical, and Axel's ego, it was already bleeding. Axel Creed had never tasted silence in a ring. He was used to noise, cheers, boos, music, corners shouting instructions. But now the gym was frozen. Not quiet because nothing was happening, quiet because no one knew what to say. Jason stood motionless. Axel's shoulder throbbed from the inside out, not bruised but disrupted. Jason had struck it not with force but knowledge. He'd hit the exact nerve junction that controlled his extension, a hit meant to remind, not destroy. Yet Axel backed up 2 steps. He cracked his neck, shook out his arms, barked something about warming up. But no one laughed this time. Jason didn't blink, didn't smile, didn't move. Axel threw a high jab to force a reaction. Nothing. Then a double jab with a fake cross. Jason pivoted with precise control, eyes locked, reading Axel's body like a surgeon reads scans. Then Jason struck again. This time it was fast. A low movement, almost subtle, a hook disguised as a push. He clipped Axel's ribs. Not a power shot, but an information shot. He felt the weakness. He felt the hesitation. Axel clenched his jaw and responded with fury, an overhand right that would have dropped most men. Jason slipped it, not with speed, with timing. The punch flew past his face. Jason stepped inside the arc and tapped Axel's knee with the flat of his palm. Axel stumbled. And that was the moment it hit him. Jason wasn't boxing. He was dissecting. The live stream upstairs cut to static. A manager scrambled for a signal. Another agent looked at the analytics board. Views were spiking. Comments were flooding in. Is that Jason Statham fighting? Why does the champ look scared? This isn't a spar. It's a funeral. The feed snapped back just in time to catch Axel getting dropped to one knee. Not from a punch, but from his own weight shifting against Jason's pressure redirect. Jason didn't follow him down. He backed off. Let the man stand. Let the shame do the heavy lifting. Axel popped up, panting, face flushed, trying to bark confidence again. But the ring girl had stopped smiling. The trainers on the sideline were dead quiet, and Axel's coach, he had taken a seat, because he knew, years ago he had trained under a man whose only lesson was about control. Not speed, not power. Control. That man was Jason Statham, back when he went by another name in the underground European fight circuit, back before he walked away from sanctioned violence. And now, Axel's coach saw it happening all over again. Only this time, the lesson was being taught with eyes watching and regret blooming. Axel finally landed a shot, clean, sharp, right hook to the side of Jason's temple. Jason took it, didn't flinch, rolled with it and let it slide off. Then and only then he stepped forward and closed the distance. The sound of his elbow hitting Axel's forearm echoed like a bat hitting concrete. Axel staggered. Jason leaned in. Not a punch, a breath, close enough to speak, but Jason didn't say anything. He let Axel's own mind fill in the words, and that was worse. Axel swung wildly, a last-ditch barrage of desperation. He forgot footwork, forgot balance, forgot form. Jason ducked under a cross and spun behind him, classic clinch reversal. He wrapped one arm over Axel's shoulder and twisted him to the canvas, flat on his back, then stepped off. Axel blinked up at the ceiling, not seeing lights, seeing everything he didn't understand. That's when Jason finally spoke. Not out loud, but through posture. He walked over to the glove Axel had thrown earlier, picked it up, then he tossed it, not at Axel, at the championship belt leaning against the stool outside the ropes, and he left, just like that, walked past the ropes, through the stunned crowd, out into the night, no music, no lights. But he left something behind, a silence that said, you don't threaten what you don't understand, you don't mock what trained you in silence, you don't try to break ghosts, because they've already survived worse. Back inside, Axel sat up. One of his assistants knelt beside him, asking if he was okay. He didn't answer. He just asked one thing, who the hell was that? But his coach already knew. He whispered the name he'd only heard in whispers. A name Jason hadn't spoken aloud in 20 years. The name that once made grown men skip tournaments. The name that had been wiped from record books, banned in some circuits, feared in others. And that name was the reason Axel wasn't shaking from pain. He was shaking from recognition. Jason didn't go home. He walked 2 blocks through the rain and stopped outside a quiet gym tucked between shuttered shops, the kind with fogged windows, flickering fluorescents, and punching bags older than the gloves that hit them. He entered without knocking. A young man behind the desk looked up but didn't speak. He recognized Jason immediately, not from movies, but from stories. Jason nodded once, walked past the desk, through the back, and into a storage room that hadn't seen sunlight in years. He pulled open a rusted locker with a broken latch and reached into the back. Inside was a bag. Not just any bag, the bag, stained canvas, leather drawstring, smelled like dust, pain, and memory. He unzipped it and pulled out a set of gloves, black, faded, one of the laces still blood-stiff. Inside the right one, a name was stitched in old thread. Not Jason, not Statham, just Ghost, because back in 1999 Jason wasn't fighting for fame, he was fighting for something else. And Ghost was the name the underground gave him. After the fourth time he left a ring without a trace and the opponent never fought again. It wasn't pride, it was control, and that control, he'd buried it when he left that world behind. But now, someone had dug it back up. Back at the luxury gym, Axel Creed was still sitting on the ring apron. The cameras had long stopped. The press had gone silent. His team hovered around, unsure whether to help him up or leave him alone. His coach didn't speak. He was staring at the belt. The one Jason had tossed the glove onto, because that toss, it wasn't casual, it was surgical. Jason hadn't disrespected the belt. He'd relieved it like it didn't belong in the hands of someone who didn't understand what it meant to earn it. And the glove, it had been marked. A tiny symbol drawn in ink inside the wrist strap. The coach recognized it immediately, a faded skull with a crown, Ghost's mark. He hadn't seen it in 2 decades. Not since the night Jason disappeared after a title bout ended in chaos, 3 medics, a legal dispute, and a fighter who never fully recovered. The circuit buried the tape. Jason walked away, until now. 3 days later, a package arrived at Axel Creed's penthouse. No note. Just a VHS tape, black plastic, no label. Axel stared at it like it was a bomb. He didn't own a VHS player, but his coach did. So that night they sat in silence, watching footage from a forgotten underground fight in Berlin. A younger Jason, lean, fast, deadly, dismantled a towering opponent twice his size. Not through rage, through discipline. Every movement calculated. Every hit designed not to injure but to prove a point. And the man in the other corner, Axel's father. Axel stood from the couch, chest rising. He had never met his father, had only known that he died young. What no one told him, what his mother refused to explain, was that his father was a fighter, and Jason had once tried to save him. Back then, the fight was meant to be stopped, but pride got in the way. Axel's father refused to quit. Jason had begged the promoter to call it. They didn't. The final blow ended the match and his career. Jason vanished a week later. Now Axel understood. The regret Jason carried wasn't about legacy. It was about unfinished accountability. And when Axel mocked him in that interview, he wasn't mocking a celebrity. He was mocking the man who'd once tried to protect his father from himself. Axel showed up at the old gym 2 nights later. No entourage, no cameras, just silence. He asked the front desk kid if Jason was there. The kid pointed to the back. Axel stepped inside. The lights were low. A heavy bag swayed gently in the corner. Jason stood beside it, taping his hands slow, methodical. Axel didn't speak. He dropped something on the bench, his belt. Jason looked at it, then at Axel. No words. Just a long breath. Then he nodded, the kind of nod 2 warriors give when they both understand the same truth. Legacy isn't earned in titles. It's forged in moments. And sometimes, the moment that defines you is the one where you walk away without swinging. Epilogue: the footage of the exhibition never aired. Jason declined every interview, every spotlight, every offer to cash in on the fight. He didn't fight for clout. He fought to teach, to warn, to close a chapter that had been left bleeding for too long. But the name Ghost started popping up again. Whispers in new gyms, talk among trainers, an urban legend resurfacing not as a fighter but as a standard. And somewhere in the background of a grainy training clip online, a shadow moved across the mat, tape on his knuckles, eyes like iron. Silent, watching, teaching the next man not how to win, but how to never forget what it means to lose everything and still stand.